A business wishes to downsize its infrastructure in order to save money. At which of the following stages should the business downsize? You need to choose two options. Your options are right size when AWS supports calls and explains that right sizing is required, right size before a migration occurs to the cloud, right size when seasonal workloads are at their peak, right size continuously after the cloud onboarding process, right size after purchasing all reserved instances. Right sizing before migration to the cloud is crucial to ensure that you are not over provisioning or under provisioning resources. By right sizing before migration, you can avoid unnecessary costs from the start and ensure that your cloud environment is cost effective from the beginning. And right sizing is an ongoing process. After you have migrated your workloads to the cloud, it is essential to continuously monitor resource utilization and adjust your infrastructure to match your actual needs. This ensures that you are not over-provisioned and are optimizing costs based on changing workloads, patterns, and requirements. Next question. Which of the following AWS service or functionality gives advice to customers about frequently asked billing questions? Your options are Amazon Pinpoint, AWS Marketplace, Amazon Connect, AWS Knowledge Center. The AWS service or functionality that gives advice to customers about frequently asked billing question is AWS Knowledge Center. The AWS Knowledge Center provides a wealth of information, including answers to common billing questions, FAQs, and resources to help customers understand their AWS bills, pricing, and billing related best practices. It's a valuable resource for AWS customers seeking guidance on billing and cost management. So folks, let's look at question number 203 of the series now. How can AWS customers benefit from deploying their applications across several availability zones? Your options are the application will have higher availability because it can withstand a service disruption in one availability zone. There is a lower risk of service failure if a natural disaster causes a service disruption in a given AWS region. There will be decreased application latency that will improve the user experience. There will be better coverage as availability zones are geographically distant and can serve a wider area. The correct answer here is option A. The application will have higher availability because it can withstand a service disruption in one availability zone. Next question. A customer with an AWS basic support subscription has discovered that their AWS resources are being used for unauthorized purposes. What is the preferred mechanism for the user to notify AWS of the activity? Your options are contact the AWS technical account manager, contact the AWS abuse team, contact the AWS concierge support team, contact the AWS support team. In the scenario where a customer with an AWS basic support subscription has discovered that their AWS resources are being used for unauthorized purposes, the preferred mechanism for the user to notify AWS of the activity is to contact the AWS abuse team. If the question probably said that the customer has AWS enterprise support, the preferred mechanism for notifying AWS of unauthorized activity would be to contact the AWS concierge support team. So always pay attention to the keywords being talked about, which type of support plan the customer has, because based on that, the answers will change. Question number 205 of the series. You have been tasked with deploying an Amazon EC2 instance which has already been configured. Which of the following AWS capabilities allows you to do so? Your options are Amazon Elastic Block Store, Amazon Machine Image, Amazon EC2 Systems Manager, Amazon App Stream 2.0. To deploy an Amazon EC2 instance that has already been configured, you would typically use an Amazon Machine Image, also called as AMI. An AMI is a pre-configured virtual machine image that contains the necessary software, operating system, and configurations. You can launch EC2 instances from an AMI, which allows you to replicate the exact configuration on multiple instances. Next question. Which relational database service is an iteration of MySQL and only available in AWS? Your options are Postgres, Aurora, MariaDB, and Redshift. Amazon Aurora is a fully managed high-performance relational database engine that is compatible with MySQL and PostgreSQL. It offers features such as high availability, automatic backups, and seamless scaling, making it a popular choice for MySQL-compatible database workloads on AWS. A company wants to migrate its application to the AWS cloud. The company plans to identify and prioritize any business transformation opportunities and evaluate its AWS cloud readiness. Which AWS service or tool should the company use to meet these requirements? Your options are AWS Migration Hub, AWS Managed Services, AWS Cloud Adoption Framework, AWS Well-Architected Framework. To identify and prioritize business transformation opportunities and evaluate AWS cloud readiness, the company should use the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework. The AWS Cloud Adoption Framework provides a structured approach for organizations to plan and execute their cloud migration and transformation journey. It helps businesses align their business objectives with technical and organizational strategies, assess their current readiness for cloud adoption, and develop a prioritized plan for migrating applications and workloads to the AWS cloud. It also includes best practices and guidelines for achieving a successful cloud adoption. Let's now look at the purpose of other services or tools in the question. AWS Migration Hub provides a centralized place to track the progress of application migrations across multiple AWS and partner solutions. AWS Managed Services, also called as AMS, is designed to operate AWS infrastructure on behalf of an organization. It provides ongoing management, monitoring, and operational support for AWS resources. And the last one, AWS Well-Architected Framework, provides best practices for designing and operating reliable, secure, efficient, and cost-effective systems in the AWS cloud. Next question. A company is launching a critical business application in an AWS region. How can the company increase resilience for this application? Your options are deploy the application in multiple VPCs, deploy the application in multiple subnets, deploy the copy of application in another AWS account, deploy the application in multiple availability zones. Let's start with first two options where application is being deployed in multiple VPCs or subnets. Deploying the application in multiple VPCs is a good practice for network isolation and security, but is not primarily a resilience strategy within a single AWS region. It's more about segmenting different parts of your infrastructure or isolating environments. Deploying the application in multiple subnets within the same availability zone is useful for improving fault tolerance within that AZ, but does not increase resilience, which is why both the options are incorrect. Third option, which is deploying a copy of the application in another AWS account, might be part of a disaster recovery or a cross-account strategy, but it does not inherently increase resilience within the same AWS region. It's more about ensuring business continuity in case of account level issues or disasters. This leaves us with option D, which is the correct answer here. To increase resilience for a critical business application in an AWS region, the company should deploy the application in multiple availability zones. Availability zones, also referred as AZs, are physically separate data centers within an AWS region. They are designed to be isolated from each other in terms of power, cooling, and network connectivity. Deploying an application in multiple AZs ensures that even if one AZ experiences issues or downtime, the application can continue running in another AZ without disruption. Next question. A web developer wants to use machine learning to classify images that are uploaded to a website. Which AWS service or feature can be used to implement this requirement? Your options are Amazon Transcribe, Amazon Mechanical Turk, Amazon Recognition, Amazon SageMaker Clarify. To implement image classification for images uploaded to a website, the AWS service that can be used is Amazon Recognition. Amazon Recognition is a deep learning based image and video analysis service that can be used for various computer vision tasks, including image classification. You can use it to automatically detect objects, scenes, and faces in images, as well as create custom image classification models tailored to your specific needs. It's a suitable choice for developers looking to implement image classification in their web applications. Question number 210 of the series. A company needs a low-code visual workflow service that developers can use to build distributed applications. You need to build distributed applications. This is the key word here. Which AWS service is designed to meet this requirement? Your options are AWS Step Functions, AWS Config, AWS CloudWatch, AWS Lambda. The AWS service designed to meet the requirement for a low-code visual workflow service that developers can use to build distributed applications is AWS Step Functions. AWS Step Functions allow you to build applications from individual building blocks called states in a visual and low-code manner. It helps you coordinate distributed applications and microservices using visual workflows, making it easier for developers to design, author, and maintain complex workflows and integrations between different AWS services. Which of the following perspective of AWS Cloud Adoption Framework focuses on identifying capability gaps and helping your organization align its readiness for cloud adoption? Your options are Envision, Align, Launch, Scale. The Align perspective is the correct choice here. This perspective focuses on identifying capability gaps, assessing an organization's current state, and aligning the organization's people, processes, and technology to prepare for successful cloud adoption. It involves creating a detailed plan for migration, setting up a governance structure, and aligning stakeholders. Now let's look at why other options are incorrect. Envision perspective in the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework is focused on creating a shared vision and understanding of what cloud adoption means for the organization, its goals, and its stakeholders. It deals with setting the direction and establishing a business case for cloud adoption. The launch perspective in the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework is about executing the cloud adoption plan developed during the Envision and Align phases. It involves actually migrating workloads and applications to the cloud. That's the meaning of launch word. The scale perspective pertains to optimizing and expanding cloud adoption after the initial migration. It involves leveraging the cloud's benefits to increase efficiency and scalability. So folks, this is the key differences between different perspectives of AWS Cloud Adoption Framework. You can have different questions around AWS Cloud Adoption Framework in your exam, and this part of the series is focused around different questions around Cloud Adoption Framework. So stay tuned with me till the end to see more questions around Cloud Adoption Framework. Question number 212 of the series. A company needs software solutions that are hosted on the AWS platform or that are integrated with the AWS platform. The company needs solutions from independent software vendors as well as management and security vendors. Which group or team can provide these solutions? Your options are AWS Concierge Support, AWS Technical Account Managers, AWS Partner Network Consulting Partners, AWS Partner Network Technology Partners. Let's look at all the options from the start. So the first one is AWS Concierge Support. It typically provides accounts and billing related support. While they can help you with basic AWS services, they are not typically focused on providing software solutions, so an incorrect choice. AWS TAMs can help you with technical guidance and best practices for your AWS environment. They can provide architectural advice and support. While they may have knowledge about various software solutions, their primary role is to assist with your AWS infrastructure, making them an incorrect choice. Now, AWS Partner Network Consulting Partners are consulting firms or agencies that offer professional services, including architectural design, implementation, and optimization of AWS solutions. They can help you design and implement software solutions that are hosted on or integrated with AWS, but they can provide you with a range of services to meet your specific needs, which again makes them an incorrect choice here. This leaves us with only one option, which is AWS Partner Network Technology Partners, which is the correct choice here. These partners are independent software vendors that offer software solutions that are integrated with AWS services. They have developed software products that can be used with AWS services, such as security, management, and other categories. These technology partners can provide you with software solutions that meet your requirements. Question number 213 of the series. Which of the following is an example of a decoupled, scalable, and cloud-based application? Your options are an application load balancer, web server, and database server that support a monolithic application, a legacy database server that is running on the maximum instance size supported by its license, a web page that is hosted on Amazon S3 and uses AWS Lambda to update an Amazon DynamoDB database, a mail and log application that runs a single Amazon EC2 instance. The example that best represents a decoupled, scalable, and cloud-based application is a web page that is hosted on Amazon S3 and uses AWS Lambda to update an Amazon DynamoDB database. Next question. A company wants to automate the retention, creation, and deletion of Amazon Elastic Block Store snapshots. Which AWS service or feature can the company use to meet this requirement? Your options are AWS Systems Manager, AWS Organizations, Amazon Data Lifecycle Manager, Amazon S3 Lifecycle Policies. Amazon Data Lifecycle Manager is a correct choice and is a service designed to manage the lifecycle of EBS snapshots. It allows you to create a snapshot lifecycle policies that automate the process of taking and managing snapshots. You can define policies to create snapshots on a schedule, retain snapshots for a specific duration, and delete older snapshots that are no longer needed. This helps in ensuring data retention and efficient management of your EBS snapshots. Question number 215. Which action is consistent with the principle of least privilege in terms of AWS cloud architecture? Your options are assign permissions that are based on job titles, allow users the minimum access that is needed to do a task, provide only the permissions that are needed for users to do their jobs in the current month, prevent managers from accessing important source code. The correct answer here would be allow users the minimum access that is needed to do a task. Next question. A company has an Amazon S3 bucket containing images of scanned financial invoices. The company is building an artificial intelligence-based application on AWS. The company wants the application to identify and read total balance amounts on the invoices. Which AWS service can be used to implement this requirement? Your options are Amazon Textract, Amazon Lex, Amazon Recognition, Amazon Forecast. To implement the requirement of identifying and reading total balance amounts on scanned financial invoices, you should use Amazon Textract, which is a service specifically designed for extracting text and data from scanned documents, including invoices. It uses machine learning to detect and extract information, making it well suited for tasks like reading and extracting numerical data, such as total balance amounts from invoices. The other services mentioned here have different use cases. Amazon Lex is a service for building conversational interfaces, which is chatbots, and is not designed for OCR, which is optical character recognition or data extraction from invoices. Amazon Recognition is primarily used for image and video analysis, including facial recognition and object detection, but it's not optimized for OCR or invoice data extraction. Then the final one, Amazon Forecast, is a service for time series forecasting, which is unrelated to the specific requirement of extracting data from invoices. Next question. Which of the following activities will be considered out of scope for AWS support? Your options are answering how-to questions on AWS services and features, troubleshooting AWS APIs, solving problems detected by Amazon EC2 health checks, tuning database queries. AWS support provides technical support for AWS services and features, which includes answering how-to questions, resolving API and service issues, and also providing guidance and best practices. However, tuning database queries is typically considered the responsibility of the customer or the application development team. It involves optimizing the database schema, indexing, and query structure to improve performance. AWS support can provide guidance and recommendations on best practices for database optimization, but actual query tuning would be out of scope for their services. Folks, before we move forward, I want to bring to your attention that I offer channel memberships now. By becoming a member, you will unlock exclusive content, including videos, PDFs, private chat rooms, and career advice sessions. If you are looking for support or additional study resources, think about joining the membership level that aligns with your requirements. Question number 218 of the series. Which AWS service or tool provides recommendations to help users get right-sized Amazon EC2 instances based on historical workload usage data? Your options are AWS App Runner, AWS Systems Manager, AWS Compute Optimizer, AWS Pricing Calculator. Let's look at the services. AWS App Runner is a service for deploying containerized application, but it does not provide right-sizing recommendations, so it is an incorrect choice. The second option, AWS Systems Manager, is a collection of tools for managing and automating AWS resources, including EC2 instances, but it doesn't focus specifically on right-sizing recommendations, so again, an incorrect choice. The third one, AWS Compute Optimizer, uses machine learning to analyze historical usage data and make recommendations on the most appropriate EC2 instance types and size to optimize performance and reduce costs, which makes it a correct choice here. Before we move ahead, the last service, AWS Pricing Calculator, is a tool for estimating the cost of AWS services, but does not provide right-sizing recommendations based on historical workload usage data. A company wants to push VPC flow logs to an Amazon S3 bucket. Which of the following actions will be company's responsibility? Your options are managing the encryption options on the S3 bucket, managing the data in transit, managing the operating system updates on the S3 bucket, managing the infrastructure that runs the S3 bucket. The correct answer here would be managing the encryption options on the S3 bucket. Even though all S3 buckets have configured encryption by default and objects are automatically encrypted by using server-side encryption with Amazon S3 managed keys, but you can gain more control over the encryption by managing your own keys. You can choose between server-side encryption with AWS Key Management Service or dual-layer server-side encryption with AWS KMS keys as well. Which perspective of the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework encourages the development of well-architected cloud-focused application? Your options are platform, operations, governance, security. The platform perspective within the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework focuses on providing guidelines and best practices for building and designing applications and systems that are optimized for the cloud. It encourages the adoption of well-architected principles and cloud-native design patterns to ensure that applications are scalable, reliable, performant, and cost-effective in the AWS environment. Let's move to next question. A company is looking for a managed machine learning service that can recommend products based on a customer's previous behaviors. Which AWS service can be used for this requirement? Your options are Amazon Pinpoint, Amazon SageMaker, Amazon Personalize, Amazon Comprehend. For recommending products based on a customer's previous behavior, you can use Amazon Personalize, which is a machine learning service specifically designed for building personalized product recommendations, content recommendations, and search recommendations. It leverages users' behavior data such as page views and purchase history to create individualized recommendations for customers. It's a great choice for implementing personalized recommendation systems. Next question. A company is planning to migrate to the AWS cloud. The company wants to identify measurable business outcomes that will explain the value of company's decision to migrate. Which phase of the cloud transformation journey includes these activities? Your options are envision, align, launch, or scale. The activities related to identifying measurable business outcomes that explain the value of company's decision to migrate to the AWS cloud are typically part of envision phase of the cloud transformations journey. In the envision phase, organizations define their cloud strategy and create a business case for migration. This includes identifying the business objectives and expected outcomes of the cloud migration. Measurable business outcomes such as cost savings, improved agility, enhanced scalability, and increased revenue are established during this phase to justify and guide the migration project. A company wants to use guidelines from the AWS well-architected framework to limit human error and facilitate consistent responses to events. Which of the following is a well-architected design principle that will meet these requirements? Your options are migrate workloads to a dedicated host, use AWS code deploy, perform operation as code, use AWS compute optimizer. The correct answer here would be performing operation as code, often referred to as infrastructure as code. Involves defining, provisioning, and managing infrastructure and resources in a programmatic and automated manner. This approach reduces the potential for human error in manual operations and ensures consistency and repeatability in how resources are configured and managed. It is a core principle in the AWS well-architected framework for building and maintaining reliable and efficient systems on AWS. Question number 224 of the series. A company is migrating to the AWS cloud and wants to optimize the use of its current software licenses. Which AWS services, features, or purchasing options can the company use to meet these requirements? You need to choose two options here. Your options are Amazon EC2 dedicated hosts, AWS budgets, AWS compute optimizer, AWS license manager, or savings plan. To optimize the use of current software licenses when migrating to the AWS cloud, the company can consider the use of AWS License Manager and Amazon EC2 dedicated hosts. Amazon EC2 dedicated hosts allow you to run instances on physical servers dedicated to your use. This can be particularly useful for bring your own license scenarios where you have existing software licenses that you want to use in the AWS environment. By using dedicated hosts, you can maintain compliance with your software licensing requirements. And then the AWS License Manager helps you manage your software licenses in the cloud. It allows you to define licensing rules, track license uses, and prevent overuses or non-compliance. This can help you make efficient use of your existing software licenses in an AWS environment. Next question. Which among the following are common stakeholders for the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework platform perspective? You need to choose two options. Your options are IT architects, chief financial officers, chief data officers, chief information officers, or engineers. And the two correct answers here would be IT architects and engineers. IT architects are often directly involved in designing and implementing cloud infrastructure and services. They play a critical role in ensuring that the cloud platform is well architected and aligned with business goals, whereas engineers, including DevOps engineers and system administrators, are responsible for implementing and managing the technical aspects of the cloud platform. They are key stakeholders in the platform perspective to ensure the successful deployment and operation of cloud resources. This is question number 226 of the series. A company wants to provide one of its employees with access to Amazon RDS. The company also wants to limit the interaction to only the AWS CLI and AWS software development kits. Which combination of actions should the company take to meet these requirements while following the principles of least privilege? You need to choose two options. And the option provided are create an IAM user and provide programmatic access only, create an IAM policy with administrator access and attach it to the IAM user, create an IAM user and provide AWS Management Console access only, create an IAM policy with Amazon RDS access and attach it to the IAM user, create an IAM role and provide AWS Management Console access only. Requirement of the question is to limit the interaction to AWS using CLI and SDK. In other words, employees shouldn't be able to access it using GUI, and the actions that will enable you to implement this requirement are create an IAM user and provide programmatic access only, and create an IAM policy with Amazon RDS access and attach it to the IAM user, which are option A and option D. Now let's look at why other options are incorrect. Option B grants admin access, which is too broad of a permission and doesn't follow AWS principle of least privilege, making it an incorrect choice. Option C and option E talk about management console access, which makes them incorrect as the key requirement is to limit the access to CLI and SDK only. A company previously lost data that was stored in an on-premise data center. To prevent or protect against future loss of data, the company wants to use AWS to automatically launch thousands of its machines in a fully provisioned state in minutes, in a format that supports data restoration. Which AWS service should the company use to meet these requirements? And the options are AWS Backup, AWS Storage Gateway, Cloud Endure Disaster Recovery, AWS Direct Connect. Cloud Endure Disaster Recovery continuously replicates your machines, including virtual machines, operating systems, system state configuration, databases, applications, and files into a low-cost staging area in your target AWS account and preferred region. In the case of a disaster, you can instruct Cloud Endure Disaster Recovery to automatically launch thousands of your machines in their fully provisioned state in minutes. Which of the following components must be attached to a VPC to enable inbound internet access? Internet gateway, VPC endpoint, NAT gateway, VPN connection. To enable inbound internet access to a virtual private cloud in AWS, you typically need to attach the internet gateway. Attaching an internet gateway to your VPC allows instances in the VPC to send and receive traffic directly to and from the internet. Let's move to next question. A cloud practitioner needs an Amazon EC2 instance to launch and run for 7 hours without interruptions. What is the most suitable and cost-effective option to accomplish this task? Your options are spot instance, reserved instance, on-demand instance, dedicated host. Correct answer here would be option C, on-demand instance. Even though spot instance could be least expensive, but that comes with a possibility of interruption, so won't be a correct choice in this case. Reserved instances and dedicated host won't have any interruptions, but would be costlier options in this scenario where instances only needed for 7 hours. So folks, based on the scenario given to you in the question, the choice of the effective option would always change. So make sure to spot the keywords in the question. Question number 230 of the series. Which AWS service is a cloud security posture management service that aggregates alerts from various AWS services and partner products in a standardized format? And the options are Amazon Guard Duty, AWS Security Hub, AWS Trusted Advisor, Amazon Event Bridge. AWS Security Hub is a service that provides a comprehensive view of your security posture across your AWS accounts. It aggregates, organizes, and prioritizes security findings from various AWS services as well as from AWS partner solutions. It presents these findings in a standardized format, making it easier to analyze and act upon security alerts. Question number 231 of the series. Companies using AWS Identity and Access Management, who among the following can manage the access keys of the AWS account root user? And the options being AWS account owner, IAM roles in any account that have been granted permission, IAM users in the same account that have been granted permission, IAM users and roles that have been granted permission. The management of access keys for the AWS account root user is restricted to AWS account owner only. Which Amazon S3 feature or storage class uses the AWS backbone network and edge locations to reduce latencies from the end user to Amazon S3? Your options are S3 standard infrequent access, S3 transfer acceleration, S3 cross-region replication, S3 event notifications. Correct answer here is S3 transfer acceleration. It uses CloudFront Content Delivery Network to accelerate uploads to Amazon S3. It leverages Amazon CloudFront's globally distributed edge locations to reduce latency and increase transfer speeds. This feature is particularly useful for large object uploads and can improve the speed at which users can upload data to a S3 bucket. Folks, before we move forward, as a reminder, if you have registered for the channel membership and looking to get PDF access, then email me at devopshub2023@gmail.com to gain access. The email ID is available on your screen as well now. You can reach out to me on the same email address if you want to book a career consultation session as well. Which of the following AWS service could an administrator use to provide desktop environments for several employees? Options being AWS organizations, AWS workspaces, AWS WAF, AWS Fargate. The AWS service that an administrator could use to perform desktop environments for several employees is AWS Workspaces. AWS Workspace is a fully managed desktop computing service in the cloud. It allows you to provision virtual cloud-based desktops for your users, providing a desktop experience on various devices. With workspaces, administrators can easily scale and manage desktop environments for multiple employees, and users can access their desktops from anywhere with an internet connection. Question number 234 of the series. Which of the following statements are examples of a company's effort to right-size its AWS resources to control cloud costs? You need to choose two options. And the options are: use multi-AZ deployments for Amazon RDS, switch from Amazon RDS to Amazon DynamoDB to accommodate NoSQL datasets, use Amazon S3 lifecycle policies to move objects that users access infrequently to lower cost storage tiers, replace existing Amazon EC2 instances with AWS Elastic Beanstalk, base the selection of Amazon EC2 instance types on past utilization patterns. And the correct answers are option C and option E. Let's now see why other options are incorrect. The first option, which is multi-AZ deployments, provides high availability and failover support in Amazon RDS, but is more related to ensuring system resilience than directly controlling costs, making it an incorrect choice. Option B is related to choice of database service and not necessarily a right-sizing effort. DynamoDB and RDS cater to different use cases and performance requirements. Option D regarding Elastic Beanstalk is a platform as a service offering for deploying and managing applications, but doesn't specifically address right sizing of underlying resources, which is why it is also an incorrect choice. Company wants to receive alerts when resources that are launched in the company's AWS account reach 80% of their service quotas. Which AWS service should the company use to meet this requirement? Your options being AWS Trusted Advisor, AWS Config, AWS CloudTrail, Amazon Inspector. And the correct answer would be AWS Trusted Advisor. AWS Trusted Advisor is a service that provides real-time guidance to help you provision resources following best practices, optimize resources for better performance, and enhance security by identifying potential vulnerabilities. It also includes checks for service quotas and can alert you when you are approaching or exceeding certain resource limits. So folks, this is question number 236 of the series. A company is using AWS for all its IT infrastructure. The company's developers are allowed to deploy applications on their own. The developers want to deploy their applications without having to provision the infrastructure themselves. Which AWS service should the developers use to meet these requirements? Your options are AWS CloudFormation, AWS Code Build, AWS Code Deploy, AWS Elastic Beanstalk. In this case, the requirement is deploying application without having to provision the infrastructure themselves. And to accomplish these requirements, the developers should use Elastic Beanstalk, which is a fully managed service that simplifies the deployment and scaling of applications. Developers can upload their code and Elastic Beanstalk automatically handles the deployment details, such as provisioning the necessary infrastructure, which includes Amazon EC2 instances, load balancing, auto-scaling, and monitoring. It abstracts away the underlying infrastructure complexities, allowing developers to focus on writing code and deploying applications. Which of the following AWS service or tool lists all the users in an account and reports on the status of account details, including passwords, access keys, and multi-factor authentication devices? Options being AWS Shield, Amazon Inspector, IAM Credential Report, AWS Trusted Advisor. IAM Credential Report provides detailed information about the IAM users and their respective credential status. including password last use, access key activity, and MFA device information. It is a comprehensive report that helps administrators monitor and manage the security aspects of IAM users in an AWS account. Question number 238. A company has stopped all of its Amazon EC2 instances, but monthly billing charges continue to occur. Which of the following could be the potential cause of this? You need to choose two options. And your options are input-output charges, elastic IP charges, operating system charges, Amazon Elastic Block storage charges, hardware charges. If elastic IP addresses are associated with a stopped instance, they are subject to charges. Then the EBS volumes are billed separately from EC2 instances, and the charges continue as long as the volume exists. So it doesn't matter if the instance is stopped. A company needs to perform data processing once a week that typically takes about 5 hours to complete. Which AWS service should the company use for this workload? AWS Code Deploy, AWS Wavelength, Amazon EC2, AWS Lambda. Amazon EC2 would be the correct choice in this scenario, while AWS Lambda is a serverless computing service that is event-driven, but it has an execution time limit of 15 minutes. And the key requirement in this question is job is taking 5 hours to complete, making AWS Lambda as the incorrect choice here. So folks, even though when you move to cloud, you are encouraged that you should go ahead and use serverless computing, but it is very important that you analyze the scenario being talked about in this question. AWS Lambda is one of the mostly consumed service of AWS, but here the requirement is that you need to run a workload which will take around 5 hours. So AWS Lambda is not a correct choice, and you will choose AWS EC2 for this requirement. Question number 240 of the series. The company provides Amazon workspaces to its remote employees. The company wants to prevent employees from using their virtual desktops to visit specific websites that are known to be malicious. Which AWS service should the company use to meet this requirement? Your options are Amazon Network Firewall, Amazon Route 53, AWS Shield Advanced, Amazon Guard Duty. AWS Network Firewall is a managed firewall service that allows you to filter and inspect traffic based on the rules you define. By using AWS Network Firewall, the company can set up rules to block access to specific malicious websites, providing an additional layer of security for the Amazon workspace environment. A user has a stateful workload that will run on Amazon EC2 for the next 3 years. What is the most cost-effective pricing model for this workload? Your options being spot instances, dedicated instances, on-demand instances, reserved instances. The most cost-effective pricing model in this case will be reserved instances. Reserved instances provide a significant discount compared to on-demand instances, as you can commit to a 1 year or 3 year term in exchange of lower hourly rates. That's why you would prefer reserved instances here over on-demand instances in this scenario. However, this choice will vary based on the scenario you have in question. So please ensure to read the scenario properly before answering such questions. Which of the following AWS service stores graph data in the form of vertices and edges? Your options being Amazon DynamoDB, Amazon Neptune, Amazon RDS, Amazon Quantum Ledger Database, which is Amazon QLDB. The correct answer here would be Amazon Neptune. Let's look at next question. Which of the following AWS services or resources can a company use directly on its on-premise servers? You need to choose two options here. Your options are AWS CloudFormation, Amazon Cognito, Application Load Balancer, AWS OpsWorks, AWS Storage Gateway. And the correct answers are on your screen, which is AWS OpsWorks and AWS Storage Gateway. A large company has a workload that requires hardware to remain on premises. The company wants to use the same management and control plane services that it currently uses on AWS. Which AWS service should the company use to meet these requirements? Options given are AWS Fargate, AWS Outposts, AWS Ground Station, AWS Device Form. The appropriate choice here would be AWS Outposts, which is fully managed service that extends AWS infrastructure, services, and tools to your on-premise facility. It allows you to run AWS compute, storage, database, and other services on your AWS hardware while still using the AWS management tools, APIs, and services. Question number 245. A company wants to limit its employees' AWS access to a portfolio of predefined AWS resources. Which AWS solution should the company use to meet this requirement? And options are AWS Config, AWS AppSync, AWS Software Deployment Kit, which is SDK, and then the last option is AWS Service Catalog. The correct answer here would be AWS Service Catalog, which allows organizations to create and manage catalogs of IT services that are approved for use on AWS. With Service Catalog, you can define and control which AWS resources and services are available to your employees, and you can set up constraints to manage resource configurations. This helps in ensuring that users only have access to resources that are part of the predefined portfolio. So folks, I hope this clarifies why AWS Service Catalog is the right choice in this case. Question number 246 of the series. A company needs to establish a connection between two VPCs. The VPCs are located in two different AWS regions. The company wants to use the existing infrastructure of the VPCs for this connection. Which AWS service or feature can be used to establish this connection? Your options being AWS Client VPN, VPC Endpoints, VPC Peering, and AWS Direct Connect. To establish a connection between two VPCs located in different AWS regions and use the existing infrastructure, you can use VPC Peering. VPC Peering allows you to connect two VPCs and route traffic between them using private IP addresses. It is a networking connection between two VPCs that allows you to route traffic between them using private IP addresses, which can be IPv4 or IPv6. This is useful for scenarios where you want to share resources or communicate between applications in different regions, which is what is being talked about in this question. Which AWS service or feature identifies whether an Amazon S3 bucket or an IAM role has been shared with an external entity? The choices given are AWS Service Catalog, AWS Organizations, AWS Systems Manager, AWS IAM Access Analyzer. As the name indicates, AWS IAM Access Manager Analyzer is the correct choice here, and it helps you identify resources in your organization and accounts such as Amazon S3 buckets or IAM roles that are shared with external entities. Now, what it does is it uses automated reasoning to analyze policies and provide findings for resources that are shared with external principals. A company does not want to rely on elaborate forecasting to determine its usage of compute resources. Instead, the company wants to pay only for the resources that it uses. The company also needs the ability to increase or decrease its resource usage to meet business requirements. Which pillar of the AWS well-architected framework aligns with these requirements? Your options being security, cost optimization, reliability, operational excellence. Now, to summarize the given requirement, companies looking to save on costs and which aligns with the cost optimization pillar of well-architected framework. Let's look at another question, which is again related to the well-architected framework. A company has designed its AWS cloud infrastructure to run its workloads effectively. The company also has protocols in place to continuously improve supporting processes. Which pillar of the AWS well-architected framework does the scenario represent? Your options are security, cost optimization, reliability, operational excellence. This aligns with the operational excellence pillar of AWS well-architected framework. The operational excellence pillar focuses on operational practices and procedures that enable an organization to monitor, operate, and evolve its workloads effectively. It includes areas such as incident response, evolving procedures over time, and the use of automation to improve processes. Continuous improvement and the ability to respond to operational events are key aspects of the operational excellence pillar. Folks, if you are liking the content till now, then don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe the channel as well. Let's look at question number 250 of the series. A company has a physical tape library to store data backups. The tape library is running out of space. The company needs to extend the tape library's capacity to the AWS cloud. Which AWS service should the company use to meet this requirement? And your options are AWS Storage Gateway, Amazon Elastic Block Store, which is EBS. Then the third option is Amazon Elastic File System, which is EFS. And the last option is Amazon S3. AWS Storage Gateway is a service that can be used to extend the tape library's capacity to the AWS cloud. Storage Gateway is a hybrid storage service that allows users to connect their on-premise data centers to the AWS cloud. It provides a range of storage options, including file-based, block-based, and tape-based storage, which can be used to store data backups and other types of data. Next question. A retail company needs to build a highly available architecture for a new e-commerce platform. The company is using only AWS services that replicate data across multiple availability zones. Which AWS service should the company use to meet this requirement? You need to choose two options here. Your options are Amazon Aurora, Amazon EC2, Amazon DynamoDB, Amazon EBS, Amazon Redshift. For building a highly available architecture in AWS that replicates data across multiple availability zones, you should choose service that offers cross-AZ replication. And the two services that meet this requirement from the provided options are Amazon Aurora and Amazon DynamoDB. Aurora is a relational database service that provides high performance and availability. It supports cross-AZ replication to enhance availability and fault tolerance. Whereas DynamoDB is a managed NoSQL database service that automatically replicates data across multiple AZs to ensure high availability and fault tolerance, making them as the correct choice in this scenario. Next question. A company has a critical application that runs at a remote site that has a slow internet connection. The company wants to migrate the workload to AWS. The application is sensitive to latency and interruptions in connectivity. The company wants a solution that can host this application with minimum latency. Which AWS service or feature should the company use to meet these requirements? Your options are AWS Local Zones, AWS Outposts, AWS Wavelength, Availability Zones. For a manufacturing company with a critical application that is sensitive to latency and interruptions in connectivity, and given that the company wants a solution with minimum latency, the most suitable AWS service would be AWS Outposts. So folks, there are lots of keywords in this question which are pointing to what can be the correct solution. As I always say, it is very critical you find those keywords and your answer will be, it will be very easy for you to answer the questions. And now, AWS Outposts allow you to run AWS infrastructure on-premise to address specific latency and data residency requirements. It extends the AWS infrastructure to your on-premise location, providing a consistent hybrid experience. So folks, this is just the definition of AWS Outposts, which was tweaked in different words and written as a question in front of you. Question number 253. A company wants to use the AWS cloud to provide secure access to desktop applications that are running in a fully managed environment. Which AWS service should the company use to meet these requirements? Your options are AWS AppSync, AWS Outposts, Amazon S3, Amazon AppStream 2.0. And the correct answer is Amazon AppStream 2.0, which is a fully managed application streaming service that allows you to stream desktop applications securely to users without the need for the applications to be installed locally on their devices. It provides a scalable and secure way to deliver applications to a variety of devices, including desktops, laptops, and mobile devices. A company is designing its AWS workload so that components can be updated regularly and so that changes can be made in small reversible increments. Which pillar of the AWS well-architected framework does this design support? Your options are security, reliability, performance efficiency, operational excellence. Keywords to answer this question are regular, small, reversible changes, which aligns with the operational excellence pillar of the well-architected framework. Let's look at one such similar question in a different form. A company simulates workflows to review and validate that all processes are effective and that staff are familiar with the processes. Which design principle of the AWS well-architected framework is the company following with this practice? Your options are refine operation procedures frequently, perform operation as code, structure the company to support business outcomes, make frequent small reversible changes. Here, the company is continuously trying to review and validate its processes for effectiveness, which aligns with the principle of refining operation procedures frequently. So, folks, there are different variations to the questions around well-architected framework. It is very critical that you should know all the pillars of the well-architected framework, as you can expect some questions around this in the AWS Cloud Practitioner exam. A company manages global applications that require static IP addresses. Which AWS service would enable the company to improve the availability and performance of its applications? Your options are Amazon API Gateway, AWS Global Accelerator, Amazon S3 Transfer Acceleration, Amazon CloudFront. And the correct answer here is AWS Global Accelerator, which is designed to enhance the availability and performance of applications by utilizing static IP addresses, also called as anycast IPs. The keyword in this question is you need to use static IP addresses. And that's why AWS Global Accelerator is the correct answer. It directs traffic over the AWS global network to optimal AWS endpoint locations based on health, geography, and routing policies that you configure. This helps in distributing incoming traffic across multiple endpoints, improving application availability, and providing low latency access to users. If you are interested in reading more about Global Accelerator, then there is a link on your screen now. Browse to the link and read more about it. Question number 257 of the series. A user has been granted permissions to change their own IAM user password. Which AWS services can the user use to change the password? You need to choose two options here. And the options given are AWS Command Line Interface, AWS Key Management Service, AWS Secrets Manager, AWS Management Console, AWS Resource Access Manager. And the correct answers are AWS Command Line Interface and AWS Management Console. You can use both of these services to change the IAM user password. Next question. A company needs to generate reports for business intelligence and operational analytics on petabytes of semi-structured and structured data. These reports are produced from standard SQL queries on data that is in an Amazon S3 data lake. Which AWS service provides the ability to analyze this data? And your options are Amazon Neptune, Amazon DynamoDB, Amazon Redshift, Amazon RDS. For analyzing petabytes of semi-structured and structured data stored in an Amazon S3 data lake using standard SQL queries, the most appropriate AWS service is Amazon Redshift. Amazon Redshift is ideal for large-scale data warehousing and analytics with support for SQL queries. So folks, in this question, there is a talk about data warehousing. Like there are many keywords in this question which are referencing to data warehousing, and the service which is used for data warehousing in Amazon or AWS is Redshift. So it is very important you identify the keywords properly and then you correlate it with the service that is relevant to that keyword. Question number 259 of the series. A company needs to deploy a PostgreSQL database into Amazon RDS. The database must be highly available and fault tolerant. Which AWS solution should the company use to meet these requirements? Your options are Amazon RDS with a single availability zone, Amazon RDS snapshots, Amazon RDS with a multiple availability zone, AWS database migration service. To achieve high availability and fault tolerance, recommended approach is to use Amazon RDS with multiple availability zones or multi-AZ configurations. The other options, which is Amazon RDS with a single availability zone, does not provide the same level of fault tolerance as multi-AZ deployment. If the availability zone where the database is located experiences issues, there may be a downtime. So this will not meet the requirement of highly available and fault tolerant database. And then the next option, which is Amazon RDS snapshots. The snapshots are backup of the databases at a specific point in time. While they are important for backup and recovery, they don't inherently provide high availability or fault tolerance. And the last option, AWS database migration service, is a service for migrating databases. While it can be used for certain scenarios, it's not specifically designed for providing high availability or fault tolerance, which is the key requirement in this question. Let's look at question number 260 of the series. Which of the following tasks is the responsibility of the customer according to the AWS shared responsibility model? Your options are patch Amazon RDS software, maintain the security of the AWS global infrastructure, maintain the security of the hardware that runs Amazon EC2 instances, patch the guest operating system of Amazon EC2 instances. Let's look at first option, which is patch Amazon RDS software. This task is responsibility of AWS. AWS manages and applies patches to underlying infrastructure and software that runs managed services like Amazon RDS. The second option is maintain the security of the AWS global infrastructure. This is the responsibility of AWS again. AWS is responsible for the security of the cloud infrastructure, including data centers, networking, and hardware that supports their services. And the third option, which is maintain the security of the hardware that runs Amazon EC2 instances, is again the responsibility of AWS, because AWS is responsible for managing the physical security of the infrastructure, including the hardware on which EC2 instances run. And the final option, patch the guest operating system of Amazon EC2 instances, is the responsibility of the customer. The customers are responsible for maintaining the security of their virtual machines, which is EC2 instances in this case, including patching the operating system, the guest operating system, configuring security groups, and managing applications and data. So folks, there can be multiple variations of this question itself. Here they are talking about patching the guest operating system, but there can be a variation where they can also mention configuring security groups or even say managing the application data on Amazon EC2 instances. So I would highly recommend you to be across AWS shared responsibility model, as you can get multiple questions around it in your exam. And this part of the series will also have few questions around shared responsibility model. So Without wasting much time, let's look at next question of this part of the series. An e-commerce company has migrated its infrastructure from an on-premise data center to the AWS cloud. Which cost is the company's direct responsibility? Your options are cost of the power for the AWS servers, cost of the application software licenses, cost of the hardware infrastructure on AWS, cost of physical security for the AWS data center. And the correct answer here is cost of application software licenses. Let's look at next question of this part of the series, which is question number 262. Which of the following are shared controls that apply to both AWS and the customer according to the AWS shared responsibility model? You need to choose two options. And your options are network data integrity, resource configuration management, physical and environmental security, replacement and disposal of disk drives, employee awareness and training. And the correct options are resource configuration management and employee awareness and training. With regards to resource configuration management, while AWS manages the security of the cloud infrastructure, customers are responsible for configuring and securing their own resources, including setting access controls, configuring security groups, and managing configurations. Now, with regards to employee awareness and training, AWS provides a secure cloud infrastructure, but customers are responsible for educating their personals on security best practices, managing access credentials, and ensuring that employees are aware of security policies and procedures. This is question number 263. Which is the least expensive AWS support plan that contains a full set of AWS Trusted Advisor best practice checks? Your options are AWS Basic Support, AWS Developer Support, AWS Business Support, and AWS Enterprise Support. Full set of AWS Trusted Advisor best practice checks is available to customers with business support plan or above. And the question talks about least expensive option. So the correct answer is AWS Business Support Plan. With AWS Basic Support Plan, only service quota and basic security checks are available. Next question. A global company is building a simple time tracking mobile app. The app needs to operate globally and must store collected data in a database. Data must be accessible from the AWS region that is closest to the user. What should the company do to meet these data storage requirements with the least amount of operational overhead? Now, the keywords here are company needs to meet the data storage requirement with least amount of operational overhead. Your options are use Amazon EC2 in multiple regions to host separate databases, use Amazon RDS cross-region replication, use AWS database migration service, use Amazon DynamoDB global tables. And the correct answer here is option D, use Amazon DynamoDB global tables. DynamoDB global tables provide a fully managed multi-region and highly available NoSQL database solution. With DynamoDB global tables, you can replicate data across multiple AWS regions, and the service takes care of the underlying replication and management. This allows your app to read and write data with low latency access from the regions closest to the user. Now, if you would have chosen option A, which is use Amazon EC2 in multiple regions to host separate databases, this option would have meant a lot of operational overhead. So, as I always say, the keyword in this question to identify the right option was avoid or probably least amount of operational overhead. That is why we have chosen option D, which is use Amazon DynamoDB global tables. Question number 265 of the series. How does the AWS cloud help companies build agility into their processes and cloud infrastructure? Your options are Companies can access a range of technologies to experiment and innovate quickly. Companies can avoid provisioning too much capacity when they do not know how much capacity is required. Companies can expand into new geographic regions. Companies can pay for IT resources only when they use the resources. And the correct answer here is option A. Companies can access a range of technologies to experiment and innovate quickly. Let's look at next question. A company has a serverless application that includes an Amazon API gateway, an AWS Lambda function, and an Amazon DynamoDB database. Which AWS service can the company use to track user requests as they move through the application's components? Your options are AWS X-Ray, AWS CloudTrail, Amazon CloudWatch, and Amazon Inspector. And the correct answer here would be option A, AWS X-Ray, which is a distributed tracing service that helps developers analyze and debug applications. It allows you to trace user requests as they travel through various components of your application, providing insights into performance bottlenecks and dependencies between different services. So folks, there is a link on your screen at the moment. You can refer to this link to read more about AWS X-Ray. Question number 267 of the series. Which AWS service offers gateway VPC endpoints that can be used to avoid sending traffic over the internet? And you need to choose two correct options here. And you have been given 5 options, which are Amazon S3, AWS Code Build, Amazon Simple Queue Service, Amazon DynamoDB, and Amazon Simple Notification Service. The AWS services that offer gateway VPC endpoints allowing you to avoid sending traffic over the internet are S3 and DynamoDB. Next question. Which of the following is the customer responsible for updating and patching according to the AWS shared responsibility model? Your options are AWS Directory Service for Microsoft Active Directory, Amazon RDS for Microsoft SQL Server, Amazon Workspace's Virtual Windows Desktop, and Amazon FSx for Windows File Server. AWS recommends that you regularly patch, update, and secure the operating system and applications of your workspaces, which is option C. You can configure your workspaces to be updated by Workspace during a regular maintenance window, or you can update them yourself. You can browse through the link on your screen to read more about workspaces management. Next question. A company implements an Amazon EC2 auto scaling policy along with an application load balancer to automatically recover unhealthy applications that run on Amazon EC2 instances. Which pillar of the AWS well-architected framework does this action cover? Your options are reliability, security, performance efficiency, and operational excellence. The action of implementing an Amazon EC2 auto-scaling policy along with the application load balancer to automatically recover unhealthy applications that run on Amazon EC2 aligns with reliability pillar of the AWS well-architected framework. The reliability pillar focuses on the ability of a workload to recover from failures and meet customer demands by detecting and mitigating disruptions. Implementing auto-scaling and using a load balancer are strategies that enhance the reliability of the system by automatically adjusting the capacity to handle varying workloads and recovering from instances or components that may become unhealthy. So folks, let's look at question number 270 of the series. A company launched an Amazon EC2 instance with the latest Amazon Linux 2 AMI. Which actions can a system administrator take to connect to the EC2 instance? You need to choose two options here, and the given options are use Amazon Connect, use AWS Batch, use Amazon EC2 Instance Connect. use AWS Systems Manager, Session Manager, use a remote desktop protocol connection. And the correct answers are use Amazon EC2 Instance Connect and use Amazon or AWS Systems Manager, Sessions Manager. EC2 Instance Connect provides a simple and secure way to connect to instances using SSH, which is secure shell. It eliminates the need to manage SSH keys manually. You can connect to the EC2 instance directly through the AWS Management Console. Whereas AWS Systems Manager, Session Manager allows you to manage your Amazon EC2 instances through an interactive one-click browser-based shell or through the AWS CLI. It provides a secure and auditable way to access instances. This is question number 271 of the series. Which of the following options are AWS Cloud Adoption Framework Security Perspective capabilities? You need to choose two options. And your options are infrastructure protection, incident and problem management, observability, availability and continuity, incident response. The AWS Cloud Adoption Framework, also called as AWS CAF, security perspective capabilities include infrastructure protection and incident response. Infrastructure protection capability focuses on securing the underlying infrastructure, including networks, servers, and other resources. Whereas incident response capability involves responding to security incidents and managing the aftermath of a security breach. Question number 272 of the series. A company plans to migrate to the AWS cloud. The company wants to use the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework to define and track business outcomes as part of its cloud transformation journey. Which AWS CAF governance perspective capabilities will meet these requirements? Your options are cloud financial management, risk management, benefits management, and application portfolio management. The correct answer here is benefits management. This capability focuses on defining, tracking, and realizing the business benefits associated with cloud adoption. Let's look at next question. A company wants to modernize and convert a monolithic application into microservices. The company wants to move the application to AWS. Which migration strategy should the company use? Your options are rehost, repurchase, refactor, replatform. You'll have to refactor the code in this case to convert a monolithic application into microservices. Question number 274. Which AWS service enables users to check for vulnerabilities on Amazon EC2 instances by using predefined assessment templates? Your options are AWS Shield, AWS WAF, AWS Trusted Advisor, and AWS Inspector. Amazon Inspector helps you improve the security and compliance of your applications deployed on AWS by performing assessments of your applications for vulnerabilities or deviations from best practices. It provides predefined assessment templates for common use cases. Let's look at next question. A company that uses AWS needs to transfer 2 terabytes of data. Which type of transfer of the data would result in no cost for the company? Your options being inbound data transfer from the internet, outbound data transfer to the internet, data transfer between AWS regions, data transfer between availability zones. There is no charge for inbound data transfer across all services in all regions in AWS. So the correct answer is option A, inbound data transfer from the internet. Next question. A company wants to create Amazon QuickSight dashboards every week by using its billing data. Which AWS feature or tool can the company use to meet these requirements? Your options are AWS Cost Explorer, AWS Budgets, AWS Cost Anomaly Detection, AWS Cost and Usage Report. In QuickSight, you can group and display data by any of the more than 90 fields included in the AWS Cost and Usage Report. So the correct answer is option D, AWS Cost and Usage Report. Let's look at why other options are incorrect. So AWS Cost Explorer is a tool for visualizing and analyzing your AWS costs, but it is not designed for creating dashboards or reports on a recurring basis. It is more of an interactive tools for ad hoc analysis. Now, option B, AWS budgets help you set custom costs and usage budgets that alert you when you exceed your thresholds. While it's useful for monitoring and controlling costs, it doesn't provide detailed data for creating dashboards, which is why this is not a correct option here. Now, the third option, which is option C, AWS Cost Anomaly Detection, is a feature that helps you detect unusual spending patterns, but it is more focused on identifying anomalies rather than providing detailed data for dashboard creation. So folks, I hope you now understand why option D, AWS Cost and Usage Reports, is the correct answer in this case. If you still have any doubts, please post your comments in the comments section and I'll try to answer them as soon as possible. Let's look at question number 277 of the series. A company wants to migrate to AWS and use the same security software it uses on premises. The security software vendor offers its security software as a service on AWS. Where can the company purchase the security solution? Your options are AWS Support Center, AWS Marketplace, AWS Management Console, AWS Partner Solutions Finder. The company can purchase the security solution from the AWS Marketplace. AWS Marketplace is an online store that offers a wide range of software solutions, including security software provided by various vendors. It allows customers to find, buy, and immediately start using softwares and services on the AWS cloud. So if the security software vendor offers its solution as a service on AWS, it would typically be listed on the AWS Marketplace and the company can make the purchase from there. Next question. A company has a fleet of cargo ships. The cargo ships have sensors that collect data at sea where there is intermittent or no internet connectivity. The company needs to collect, format, and process the data at sea and move the data to AWS later. Which AWS service should the company use to meet these requirements? Your options being Amazon Lightsail, AWS Storage Gateway, AWS Snowball Edge, and AWS IoT Core. To meet the requirements of collecting, formatting, and processing data at sea with intermittent or no internet connectivity and then moving the data to AWS later, the company should use AWS Snowball Edge. AWS Snowball Edge is a service that allows you to transfer large amounts of data into and out of the AWS cloud. It is particularly designed for scenarios where internet connectivity is limited or inconsistent. Snowball Edge devices are rugged and portable, making them suitable for use in environments like cargo ships. Question number 279 of the series. A user is moving a workload from a local data center to an architecture that is distributed between the local data center and the AWS cloud. Which type of migration is this? Your options are on-premise to cloud native, hybrid to cloud native, on-premises to hybrid, cloud native to hybrid. The type of migration described where a user is moving a workload from a local data center to an architecture that is distributed between the local data center and the AWS cloud is referred to as on-premise to hybrid migration. So folks, I hope you now understand what sort of migration is being talked about here. If you are still confused between different type of the cloud strategies available, then there is different content available on the channel to understand more about these things in details. So go through the links. Let's look at question number 280 of the series. Which of the following tasks are customer responsibilities according to AWS shared responsibility model? You need to choose two options here. Determine which availability zone to use for Amazon S3 buckets. Select Amazon EC2 instances to run AWS Lambda on. Patch or upgrade Amazon DynamoDB. Configure the AWS provided security group firewall. Classify company assets in the AWS cloud. And the correct answers are option B and option D, which is configure the AWS provided security group firewall and classify company assets in the AWS cloud. Next question. A company needs to deliver new website features quickly in an iterative manner to minimize the time to market. Which AWS cloud concept does this requirement represent? Your options are reliability, high availability, elasticity, agility. The requirement to deliver new website features quickly in an iterative manner to minimize the time to market aligns with the AWS cloud concept of agility. Agility is the context of cloud computing, refers to the ability to quickly and easily adapt to changing requirements, innovate rapidly, and release new features or applications in a timely manner. It emphasizes the speed and flexibility of development and deployment process, allowing businesses to respond quickly to market demands. So folks, you would be familiar with this if you work in an agile environment where you work in sprints and try to deliver things as quickly as possible. This is what agility is all about. Let's look at next question. A company has multiple applications and is now building a new multi-tier application. The company will host the new application on Amazon EC2 instances. The company wants the network routing and traffic between the various applications to follow the security principle of least privilege. Which AWS service or feature should the company use to enforce this principle? Your options are AWS Shield, AWS Global Accelerator, Security Groups, AWS Direct Connect Gateway. The company should use security groups in this case, as they act as virtual firewalls for Amazon EC2 instances, controlling inbound and outbound traffic at the instance level. By configuring security groups appropriately, the company can define rules that allow only necessary and explicitly permitted traffic between different tiers of the multi-tier application. Question number 283 of the series. A company's web application requires AWS credentials and authorizations to use an AWS service. Which IAM entity should the company use as best practice? Your options are IAM role, IAM user, IAM group, IAM MFA, which is multi-factor authentication. For providing AWS credentials and authorizations to a web application, the company should use IAM role. Let's look at next question, folks. A company is creating a document that defines the operating system patch routines for all the company's systems. Which AWS resources should the company include in this document? You need to choose two options again. Your options are AWS Fargate tasks, AWS Lambda functions, AWS Amazon EC2 instances, Amazon ECS instances, Amazon RDS instances. In the document defining the operating system patch routine for all the company's systems, the company should include information related to Amazon EC2 instances and Amazon RDS instances. EC2 instances are virtual servers in the AWS cloud, and they typically run operating systems. Managing the patch routine for EC2 instance is a critical aspect of maintaining the security and reliability of the system, folks. RDS, which is also called as Relational Database Service instances, also run on virtual servers, and they require proper patching for the underlying operating system as well as the database engine to ensure security and performance. So folks, I hope you now understand why Amazon EC2 instances and Amazon RDS instances are the correct options in this case. If you still have any doubts, as always, please post them in the comment section. Question number 285. A company is required to store its data close to its primary users. Which benefit of the AWS cloud supports this requirement? Your options are security, global footprint, elasticity, high availability. The benefit of the AWS cloud that supports the requirement of storing data close to its primary users is global footprint. AWS offers a global network of data centers and regions, allowing companies to deploy resources and store data in geographic locations that are closer to their end users. This helps in reducing latency and improving the overall performance of applications for users located in specific regions. This is question 286 of the series. A company needs an Amazon EC2 instance for a right-sized database server that must run constantly for 1 year. Which EC2 instance purchasing option will meet these requirements most cost effectively? Your options are spot instance, on-demand instance, convertible reserved instance, standard reserved instance. First keyword in this question is run constantly for 1 year, which means there can't be any outage. So we can safely rule out option A, spot instances. Now the second keyword of the question is cost effectively. So we can rule out option B, on-demand instances, as reserved instances offer more discounts, making them cheaper than on-demand instances. Now among the remaining two options, standard reserved instances offer more discounts as compared to convertible reserved instances. So option D is the correct choice in this case. A company would like to host its MySQL database on AWS and maintain full control over the operating system, database installation, and configuration. Which AWS service should the company use to host the databases? And the choices are among Amazon EC2, Amazon RDS, Amazon Aurora, Amazon DynamoDB. Key to answer this question is that companies looking to have full control over the underlying infrastructure, which means any managed service is not a right choice here. So we will rule out option B, C, and D, which leaves us with option A, Amazon EC2, which is the correct choice in this case. So folks, it is very important, as I always say, to find the keywords in the question, and it makes it easy to answer. Let's look at question number 288 of the series. A company plans to use an Amazon Snowball Edge device to transfer files to the AWS cloud. Which activities related to a Snowball Edge device are available to the company at no cost? Your options being the transfer of data out of Amazon S3 and to the Snowball Edge appliance, the transfer of data from the Snowball Edge appliance into Amazon S3, daily use of Snowball Edge appliance after 10 days, use of the Snowball Edge appliance for a 10-day period. With AWS Snowball, you pay only for your use of the device and for data transfer out of AWS. Data transfer out of Amazon S3 is priced by region, and data transfer into Amazon S3 is $0 per GB, which means the correct option is option B. The transfer of data from the Snowball Edge appliance into Amazon S3 is the option, which is the activity which the company can perform at no cost. So folks, there is a link on your screen at the moment. If you are interested in reading more about pricing related to Snowball, then browse through the link. Next question. A company is running a monolithic on-premise application that doesn't scale and is difficult to maintain. The company has a plan to migrate the application to AWS and divide the application into microservices. Which best practice of the AWS well-architected framework is the company following with this plan? And the option given are: use automation to deploy changes, integrate functional testing as part of AWS deployment, deploy the application to multiple locations, implement loosely coupled dependencies. Whenever there is a talk about migrating a monolithic application to cloud, then you should look for loosely coupled microservices in the answers. And here the option D states implement loosely coupled dependencies, which is the correct answer here. A company has a centralized group of users with large file storage requirements that have exceeded the space available on-premise. The company wants to extend its file storage capabilities for this group while retaining the performance benefit of sharing content locally. What is the most operationally efficient AWS solution for this scenario? And your options are: configure and deploy an Amazon storage gateway, file gateway, connect each user's workstation to the file gateway, create an Amazon S3 bucket for each user, mount each bucket by using an S3 file system mounting utility, deploy an Amazon EC2 instance and attach an Amazon Elastic Block Store provisioned IOPS volume, share the EBS volume directly with the users, and the final option is mount each user's working environment to Amazon workspaces, set up an Amazon WorkDocs account for each user. So folks, the key to answer this question again is you need to maintain the performance benefit and you need to choose a solution which is most operationally efficient. And the correct answer here would be configure and deploy an AWS storage gateway, file gateway, and then you connect each user's workstation to the file gateway. Question number 291 of the series. How does AWS cloud computing help businesses reduce costs? You need to choose two options here. AWS charges the same price for services in every AWS region. AWS offers discounts for Amazon EC2 instances that remain idle for more than 1 week. AWS eliminates many of the costs of building and maintaining on-premise data centers. AWS enables capacity to be adjusted on demand. AWS doesn't charge for data sent from the AWS cloud to the internet. And the correct options are now on your screen. AWS eliminates many of the costs of building and maintaining on-premise data centers, and AWS enables capacity to be adjusted on demand. A company needs to quickly and securely move files over long distances between its clients and an Amazon S3 bucket. Which S3 feature will meet this requirement? Your options are S3 versioning, S3 ACLs, S3 intelligent tiering, S3 transfer acceleration. For quickly and securely moving files over long distances between clients and an Amazon S3 bucket, the most suitable feature would be S3 transfer acceleration. S3 transfer acceleration utilizes Amazon CloudFront's globally distributed edge locations to accelerate the upload of files to an S3 bucket. This feature helps overcome the challenges of transferring large files over long distances by optimizing the transfer speed. Instead of clients uploading files directly to the S3 bucket, they can use a unique endpoint provided by S3 transfer acceleration. This endpoint leverages Amazon CloudFront's content delivery network to accelerate the upload process. So folks, I hope you now understand why S3 transfer acceleration is the correct option here. If you still have any doubts, then post them in the comment section and I'll address them as soon as possible. Let's look at next question. What is the customer always responsible for managing according to the AWS shared responsibility model? Your options are networking, customer data, encryption keys, software licenses. Customers are always responsible for managing their data, classifying their assets, and using IAM role to apply the appropriate permissions. Question number 294. A company has an Amazon EC2 instance in a private subnet. The company wants to initiate a connection to the internet to pull operating system updates while preventing traffic from the internet from accessing the EC2 instance. Which AWS service will allow you to implement this? So folks, the company is trying to initiate a connection to internet to pull the operating systems while they also want to ensure that the internet traffic cannot access the EC2 instances. And your options are VPC endpoint, VPC peering, NAT gateway, Amazon private link. To enable the Amazon EC2 instances in a private subnet to initiate a connection to the internet for operating system updates while preventing inbound traffic from the internet, you should use a NAT gateway, which is Network Address Translation Gateway. It enables instances in a private subnet to connect to the internet, but prevents inbound traffic initiated by the internet from reaching those instances, which is what the requirement of the question. It allows outbound communication from your private subnet to the internet while keeping your instances in the private subnet secure. Now, the other options, VPC endpoints, allows you to privately connect your VPC to supported AWS services without needing an internet gateway, a NAT device, VPN, or a direct connection. Then the second option, which is VPC peering, enables you to connect one VPC into another VPC through a direct network route. It doesn't provide internet access to the instances in your VPC. And the last option, Amazon Private Link, it enables you to access services over a private connection, eliminating exposure to the public internet. It doesn't provide internet access to your instances. It's more for accessing AWS services privately. Which encryption types can be used to protect objects at rest in Amazon S3? You need to choose two options. And your options are server-side encryption with Amazon S3 managed encryption keys, TLS, server-side encryption with AWS KMS managed keys, transparent data encryption, which is TDE, and then the final option is SSL. The encryption methods that you can use to protect objects at rest are server-side encryption with Amazon S3 managed encryption keys and server-side encryption with AWS KMS managed keys. Now, with server-side encryption with Amazon S3 managed encryption keys, Amazon S3 automatically manages the encryption keys for you. Each object is encrypted with a unique key, and as an additional safeguard, it encrypts the key itself with a master key that is regularly rotated. And the other option, which is server-side encryption with AWS KMS managed keys, the KMS, which is AWS KMS, is used to manage the encryption keys. With SSC KMS, again, you have additional control over encryption keys, including the ability to audit key uses. You can either use the default AWS KMS key or choose a customer managed key. Remaining options, SSL and TLS, are used for securing data in transit. Again, the key to answer this question is you need to protect objects at rest. If this question is changed to protect objects in transit, then your option becomes TLS and SSL. So again, finding the keywords is the reason you will be able to crack these exams in first attempts. Now, TDE is a feature that encrypts an entire database at the storage level. A company is moving an on-premise data center to the AWS cloud. The company must migrate 50 petabytes of file storage data to AWS with least possible operational overhead. Which AWS service or resources should the company use to meet these requirements? Your options being AWS Snowmobile, AWS Database Migration Service, AWS Data Exchange, AWS Snowball Edge. To migrate 50 petabytes of file storage data to AWS with least possible operational overhead. These are the keywords which I have just spoken. the most suitable option would be AWS Snowmobile. It is a service designed for exabyte scale data transfer. It is a secure and efficient way to move extremely large amounts of data to AWS cloud and is a rugged shipping container that is trucked to your on-premise data center. It has multiple storage devices capable of holding up to 100 petabytes of data. You load your data onto the Snowmobile and AWS takes care of securely transporting it to an AWS region. Once the Snowmobile arrives at the AWS region, the data is ingested into Amazon S3 or Amazon Glacier. So folks, the keyword here is 50 petabytes of data. As you would have heard, Snowmobile is capable of holding up to 100 petabytes of data. So if the question is probably changed to 110 petabytes of data, then the correct options will automatically change. Let's look at question number 297. A company wants to design a centralized storage system to manage the configuration data and passwords for its critical business applications. Which AWS service or capability will meet these requirements most cost effectively? Your options are Amazon S3, AWS Secrets Manager, AWS Systems Manager Parameter Store, AWS Config. AWS Systems Manager Parameter Store is a suitable option for managing configuration data, including parameters and secure strings in a centralized manner. It allows you to store key value pairs and secure strings, making it versatile for managing various types of configuration information. Now, folks, you might be tempted to choose AWS Secret Manager here, but AWS Secret Manager is designed explicitly for managing and protecting sensitive information such as database credentials, API keys, and passwords. While AWS Secrets Manager is a powerful service for secrets management, it may be considered more feature-rich and potentially more expensive than needed for simpler use cases involving only configuration data. If advanced features like automatic rotation of secrets are not required, AWS Systems Manager Parameter Store is a more cost-effective option. Which is what is the keyword in the question. You need to meet these requirements most cost-effectively. Question number 298. Which option is an AWS Cloud Adoption Framework Platform Perspective capability? Your options are data architecture, data governance, data science, data protection. Data protection is a sub-function of the platform perspective. It helps companies plan and implement the architecture of their cloud environment, including selecting the right cloud services, defining data models, and implementing data storage and processing. So folks, again, I have a link on the screen which you can refer to understand more about platform perspective. Also, if you browse through this white paper, you can understand more about AWS Cloud Adoption Framework as well. Let's look at next question. After selecting an Amazon EC2 dedicated host reservation, which pricing option would provide the largest discount? And your options are no upfront payment, hourly on-demand payment, partial upfront payment, all upfront payment. Making a full upfront payment for the entire reserved term in return gives the maximum discount on the hourly rates. Option D, all upfront payment, generally provides the largest discount over the term of the reservation. A company has refined its workload to use specific AWS services to improve efficiency and reduce cost. Which best practice for cost governance does this example show? Your options are tagging enforcement, cost allocation, architecture optimization, resource controls. The best practice for cost governance demonstrated in this example, where a company refines its workload to use specific AWS services to improve efficiency and reduce costs, is architectural optimization. Architecture optimization involves designing and structuring your cloud architecture in a way that maximizes efficiency, performance, and cost effectiveness. By choosing the right AWS services and configurations tailored to the workload requirements. The company is optimizing its architecture for both functionality and cost savings. Now, there is again a link on your screen. This is a link to a archived white paper from AWS. You can browse through this link to confirm the validity of the answer. So folks, this brings me to the end of the questions that I wanted to cover in this part of the series. There are lots of questions that I still want to bring forward. So if you have liked the video, then do not forget to give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends who are also preparing for AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner examination. And finally, do not forget to subscribe the channel for getting updated on more such content in future.